Today we're going to talk all things Pylex. Whether Pylex is new to you or you're after a refresher, this video will have all the information you need. For us, it's not just about the chemistry itself. It's about how we package it, deliver it, and support it responsibly. That's where things like EcoPack come in, reducing plastic use by around 25 to 30% and being fully recyclable. Practical innovations like the Pylex syringe also reduce waste and improve operator safety, which are real tangible benefits on the ground. Sustainability is becoming an increasingly important part of the conversation at club level. Committees and boards are asking more questions around it and having a genuine story to tell alongside performance matters. Product stewardship is another way we approach sustainability. That includes things like promoting good rotation through multiple modes of action and developing formulations that reduce off-target risk. Across the BASF turf range, the focus is really on providing a strong foundation that works across the entire site, from surrounds and non-turf areas right through to greens, tees, fairways and sports fields. That overall coverage is important because it means we're not just solving one problem on one surface. We're supporting the whole operation with tools that cover weeds, disease, and overall turf presentation. Within that framework, products like Pylex step in as more targeted solutions where precision really matters. And with the recent label update, Pylex now offers opportunities for use beyond golf courses as well, opening it up to a wider range of turf situations. Pylex is our precision tool for cool season turf. It's unmatched when it comes to knocking out warm season grasses and broadleaf weeds where they shouldn't be. It works with a clear visual response so turf managers can actually see it doing its job quickly and effectively. And to make life easier, it comes in pre-measured syringes, so application is simple, accurate, and safe for turf. In simple terms, Pylex works by inhibiting an enzyme in the weed that's responsible for breaking down a key amino acid. When that process is disrupted, it triggers a few things to happen. Firstly, the build-up of that amino acid tyrosine slows and stunts weed growth. Secondly, because the plant can't produce vitamin E properly, oxidative damage occurs, and that's what causes the clear bleaching we see after application. And finally, chlorophyll is effectively destroyed, which means the weed can't photosynthesize and ultimately dies. The key point is that all this happens very selectively. Pylex targets susceptible weeds while allowing you to clean up warm season grasses and broadleaf weeds without compromising your cool season turf. How Pylex works in the weed is that Pylex is quickly absorbed through the leaves, roots and shoots. Once inside, it moves through the plant. What you'll see is the weeds stop growing almost straight after treatment, and within 7 to 10 days, you'll start noticing that classic bleaching effect. The end result, by about 3 to 4 weeks, the bleached areas turn brown and the tissue dies off. With Pylex, it's important to be clear that the product is labelled to be applied with an MSO. It's a label requirement. While surfactants and penetrants often get grouped together, they don't do the same job and are not a direct substitute for one another. Surfactants help the spray stick and spread across the leaf, whereas penetrants like methylated seed oil, or MSO, go a step further and actually help drive the product into the plant. That's especially important with Pylex, where you're applying a very small amount of active ingredient. The role of the MSO is to help that chemistry penetrate the leaf cuticle effectively, which is crucial for getting the consistent and reliable results. For application rate, we use 0.375 ml of Pylex per 100 square metres, which is one syringe mixed in 4 to 6 litres of water plus 0.5% MSO. That's a really tiny amount of chemical, so precision matters. As for nozzle choice, you should use a medium to coarse flat fan nozzle, depending on how much output you want. You may be wondering, why does accuracy matter? Well, here is a little example. If you're meant to spray 5 litres over 100 square metres, so in other words, 1 litre covers 20 square metres, but you accidentally walk too far and cover 25 square metres with that same litre. That means you've actually spread the same chemical over a big area, meaning 20% less active ingredient went where you wanted it. Pylex works at an incredibly low rate, just 0.375 ml per 100 square metres, so your calibration has to be spot on. If you walk too fast or spray too far, you could spread the product too thin. The key takeaway from this is precision is everything here. This is essentially a summary of how we maximise success with Pylex. Like any chemistry, there are optimal conditions and factors to consider that will help us achieve the best results each time. It is important we always use a good quality MSO at 0.5% of the total spray volume. For example, a spray mix consisting of 4 litres of water would require 20 ml of MSO. At 5 litres of water, you would need 25 ml of MSO, and at 6 litres of water, you would add 30 ml of MSO. Pylex works best when the weeds are young, actively growing, but not at their strongest. It is important to take time to make sure calibration is spot on, as we highlighted in the previous slide. And finally, ensure conditions are warm and sunny, and keep in mind that cool weather could slow down results. There are multiple application methods, including treating encroachment of warm season grass with a perimeter spray. As you can see in the picture here, the red ring indicates a 1 metre wide circumference of the green. Another method might be targeting a patch or large section, or maybe even multiple spot spray treatments. This method may be preferred, especially when treating lawns, fields, or large areas. Or alternatively, a combination treatment of both the perimeter and spot treatments. One syringe is designed to cover 100 square metres, which in most cases is basically a perimeter lap plus any spot treatments per green. The key across these examples is to apply at the recommended rate regardless of the area that you are treating. Label rates are developed around the host, not the weed. The lower rate for bent grass greens requires 2 application strategy as a minimum. There are also situations where a 1 application higher dose is also appropriate on other surfaces. Here we see the proposed application program, ultimately driven by timing that ensures the host to be in its best condition, weeds to be actively growing, but importantly, not growing at their strongest pace. It is a recommendation, and there are opportunities outside of this in certain climates. However, this encompasses what we discussed earlier around setting up for success. Essentially, we want to avoid times of aggressive weed growth. Ultimately, that means we're targeting weeds when they're vulnerable, shutting them down going into winter, then again as they try to fire up in spring. For mature runners, we step it up to a 5 spray program. 3 in autumn to really knock them back when they're at their most vulnerable, and then 2 in spring to stop any comeback as growth kicks off again. This gives a far more complete program and supports long-term management. In simple terms, this really sums up what Pylex brings to turf managers and the wider turf industry. It's a strong example of how a genuine industry challenge has been tackled through very targeted chemistry, backed up by packaging that's been designed to make application easier. Importantly, it doesn't just stop at effective weed control. The way Pylex is delivered and used also starts to address some of the bigger pressures the industry is facing, particularly around labour efficiency and operator safety. Over the next couple of slides, we're going to look at some graphs of some trials done with Pylex. Firstly, we'll look at cooch control on a bent grass green. As you can see, this trial really shows the power of Pylex. As we know on bent grass greens, cooch can be a nightmare to control. But with 2 applications, we saw almost total control, about a 97% reduction. Another thing we can see here is the 50% decline, which aligns with the bleaching, 7 to 10 days after application. Kikuyu is also a tough grass to manage, especially in established plots. This trial shows that with 2 applications of Pylex, we achieved around 84% control. We can also see significant decline after 2 applications. It is also worth noting that all trial work was done with only 2 application strategy, and yet control was still achieved. Here is a snapshot of the autumn weed control toolkit, with Pylex at the centre of it. It highlights where Pylex fits from a practical point of view. Highly selective, post-emergent control at ultra-low rates, designed specifically for sensitive bent grass and cool season surfaces. You'll see Drive Excel included alongside it in the toolkit to provide some additional flexibility where required. But the real takeaway here is precision, targeted chemistry, very low use rates, and pre-measured syringe packs that remove a lot of the risk and guesswork during a busy autumn period. Overall, it's about giving turf managers a sharp, controlled option they can apply with confidence. At this point, it's worth touching on some of the more common questions that come up around Pylex, things our team is regularly asked in the field. One that comes up early is Poa annua, and whether Pylex is safe to use in mixed swards. The short answer is yes. Pylex is safe to apply to Poa annua when it's part of a mixed sward. From there, rates are another common discussion point. Pylex is applied at 0.375 ml, or 1 syringe, up to 0.75 ml, or 2 syringes per 100 square metres, with MSO, depending on the host species. You may see some temporary bleaching on bent grass, but that's typically short-lived. Weeds usually start showing visible effects within about 7 days. As for control, one application can be enough in some situations, but particularly in bent grass, a minimum of 2 follow-up sprays is often required. And when it comes to reapplication timing, that 21 to 28 day window is the sweet spot. Building on that, another question we get is whether free applications are always needed. And the honest answer is, it depends. Factors like the time of year and how established the weed is will both influence how many applications are required. There are also questions around turf safety following scarifying. From our local trials, we haven't seen any added risk of injury when Pylex is used appropriately. In terms of reseeding, the label guidance is to allow at least 28 days after seeding and to avoid applications within 2 weeks prior to seeding. And finally, there's often concern around movement into collars. With good application technique, using a flat fan nozzle and being mindful of tracking, you can achieve a clean, defined line and minimise the risk of drift or movement into surrounding areas. Here we have a testimonial from Josh Willard, Superintendent at Cypress Lakes Golf and Country Club, who was involved in some of the late phase demonstration work and still uses Pylex with great success. Josh writes, after the first application, the results spoke for themselves. The removal of invasive grasses had minimal impact on the playing conditions, even following significant couch removal. This affirmed both the effectiveness and turf safety of Pylex. The next couple of slides show some visual examples of Pylex in action from late phase demonstration work completed at Cypress Lakes. In these images, Pylex was applied across the entire green. Around 10 days after the first application, you can start to see bleaching developing through the couch patches. By about 18 days, those patches really stand out. The couch is clearly being knocked down, while the bent grass remains in a healthy state. By the second application, there's notably less bleaching, which reflects the level of control already achieved from that first spray. Here, only the perimeter was treated. You can really see the effectiveness of Pylex where couch tends to invade from the surrounds. 10 days after the first spray, you've got visible bleaching. By 18 days, couch control is strong, while the bent still remains healthy, leaving the perimeter clean and under control. It's a great example of how Pylex protects those higher risk edges. It's always valuable to hear how Pylex performs year on year in the field. These are insights from users applying it in their own programs each season.
Because the course is 50 to 60 years old, there's a lot of Queensland blue and stuff that's infested in the greens, so there's actually large patches throughout. So we've been treating those areas and getting some really good results. There was a product that was previously in the market, which I'm sure a lot of people have used, but we never got really good results with it. The couch would always come back. The only other method that we were doing was spraying the product out with glyphosate, and when it was dying out, manually removing it. So yeah, you spent several hours doing that, not to mention the disruption with the playing surface as well. We sort of heard about Pylex just through our reps. Everyone was eagerly awaiting the product. We sort of put our order in early and we've been using it, so we've done 2 seasons of spraying now. Very simple product to use, comes in a nice little syringe. Makes it pretty simple for the staff to go out. They know that one syringe will cover 100 square metres. We're using a knapsack sprayer. We're mixing it straight into the vat. We just spot spray the areas that we need to. We do have encroachment into the greens, so we do go around and do a perimeter cut around the greens with an edge, and then we spray, anything that's growing inside that. It kills out the coots quite slowly, so it gives an opportunity for that bent grass to grow back in over it at the same time. 21 to 28 days after, we follow up. We usually do 3 applications. We've reduced the amount that we've got in the greens substantially, so I think every year that'll improve. Pylex has worked really well for us. Certainly go and recommend it for anybody else that's got similar issues.
I first heard about Pylex when they were doing trial work up the Hunter Valley. I tried to be part of that trial program because at the time we were having a lot of trouble with weeds in the greens. We were using other products that were too inconsistent with the results we're getting, and we started losing turf and it wasn't worth the risk, so we just had to hand weed it. Then as soon as Pylex came onto the market, I threw as much money at it as I was allowed to. We were worried about the effect the Pylex would have on the greens, for how much weeds were in the greens. After the first 2 weeks of application, there was a lot of bleaching over the greens from the Pylex. The ball roll was never affected by no means with the amount of weeds we had in the greens. So 21 days we went again, and very rarely we needed a 3rd application to knock it over, to the point where it's got us to now. It's really saved us. The whole golf course is predominantly Kikuyu fairways, but a bit of manual labour involved, but we've got to edge the Kikuyu and Cooch to define the surrounds. But then also we put a hard edge on the greens as well. Any Cooch on the inside of that, then we'll just hit it with Pylex. Our mixing process is 1 syringe. We use blue dye as well, just to highlight where we've been, and then just hasten, just to help with that initial contact as well. 5 litres and away you go. From 1 knapsack doing 1 green to 1 knapsack doing 5 greens. That's how much we're decreasing the infestation. I'd find it very hard to find a weed on our greens now. There's no other product that I'm more confident to use than Pylex. Highly recommend it.
Pylex gives turf managers a completely new way to deal with invasive grasses and broadleaf weeds in cool season turf. It's powered by tepromazone, which is really changing how surfaces can be managed. You get reliable, visible effects within 7 to 14 days, and because it moves through the plant to the growing points, it's safe on bent, fescue and rye, and it comes in a really practical pack of 5 syringes that make application much simpler. Thanks for taking the time to watch the presentation. Whether Pylex was completely new to you or you're just looking for a refresher, I hope this has given you what you need to understand where it fits and how it can be used with confidence in a practical turf program. If you've got any questions or want to talk through how Pylex might fit into your own situation, please reach out. We're always happy to help.